Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment, for the Sony SEL2870. This is a full-frame FE lens designed for Sony's E-mount for the A7 and A7R, but specifically designed for the A7. That's why it is the kit piece of glass that you can buy for $2,000, the package you're looking at here, that I've already reviewed in depth, but specifically today the video is all about the actual piece of kit glass rather than the camera, because I know there are many of you out there wondering whether or not you should buy this kit package or go for prime glass, go for the Zeiss 24-70, which is clearly the big upgrade from this piece of kit glass. And again, it's one of those decisions that all comes down to what you're interested to really get out of your photography, what your expectations are for image quality, low light performance, contrast, all of those things, sharpness that you'd expect to get out of a lens. Because even though this is kit glass and it comes included, discounted for $2,000 with the A7, which traditionally on its own is $1699.99, you can pick up the lens on its own for $499.99. So at $500, it is the least expensive FE native lens right now for the E-mount. Again, FE is the designation for full-frame E-mount lens. And in terms of size and performance, Sony did everything right with this lens, much like their previous gen kit glass. And this is something that I stated in the first update I did about this lens. And that's because Sony knows that at the very base, if you don't get something like a kit lens right and you frustrate users out of the gate, they're really not going to be interested, no matter how much you brag about higher end glass, and even considering it, because they haven't been satisfied with the very base offerings. So in pretty much all of Sony's mirrorless cameras, I would argue they've done a great job on kit lenses, not only in terms of performance but innovation. I mean, the Pancake Power Zoom kit lens is a great piece of glass also for its price. Of course, that is an APS-C piece of glass, but it again just proves the point I've been making about Sony putting a great emphasis on making quality kit glass. Now, this isn't an incredibly fast piece of glass, but because it's got that 28 to 70 millimeter range, as well as some weatherproofing, even though Sony's been pulling that now off of all of the stuff associated with these cameras, so weatherproofing or not, build quality is still solid, construction is good, the zoom is internalized, as you may have noticed. Unlike the Zeiss, it does not just extend out and then retract back when you pull it out wide, which is a benefit because it keeps the lens small. The fact that they didn't go with full metal construction and it's a blend makes it a lightweight lens, a very good match for the A7 or A7R. In fact, this, outside of the 35mm f2.8 Zeiss lens, is really one of your best options if you want to keep the A7 or A7R as light as possible. And after all, the entire mirrorless package is based around form factor, so this lens is optimized not only in terms of its optics, not to be cute, but also form factor and ergonomics. So a joy to shoot with. Is you really can one hand shooting with this lens, whereas with the Zeiss, you better be ready with the Zeiss zoom to brace a little bit, because there's definitely quite a bit of extra weight with that build, as well as extra bulk because of it being a faster lens, a constant f4, as opposed to the range of 3.5 to 5.6 that this offers throughout the 28 to 70 focal range that it features. So a nice lens, no question about it. Whether or not it's right for you really comes down to your actual needs. It is, again, only one of the two lenses right now that offers optical steady shot. So if video is important to you, then that should be relevant. Not that it doesn't play a role otherwise, but video is where it's clearly going to be, I would say, a big difference. If you're dealing with any of the prime lenses, stability is on you, not the lens. Here, you've got at least some form of compensation. The Zeiss 24-70 also offers that, but at a $1,200 price point that is a premium most consumers aren't going to even consider And that's really the heart of this full review of this lens, is that if you're wondering whether or not it delivers at its $500 price point or the combined kit price discounted with the A7, it absolutely does. In fact, I think Sony got this perfectly right in terms of delivering a quality piece of kit glass in form and function that delivers exactly what it needs to basically highlight all of the great capabilities of the A7. Of course, one of the areas it leaves out is low light performance, but it is kit glass, and we have to put things in perspective, be realistic about expectations, no differently than we would be with the Zeiss zoom lens, that even though it has a faster rating at f4 constant, it still is far from being a low light gem. So, you have to take the good with the bad, but it's mostly good here, especially at that $500 price point, because every other lens that's FE right now is considerably more expensive. The 35mm lens is priced at $799.99. The 55mm prime, $999.99. The Zeiss, as I mentioned, $1199.99. And then finally, the zoom lens that isn't out yet, the 70-200, is going to be $1499.99, and that will also be a constant f4 with optical steady shot. So very limited glass, and I think that's another reason that this is a star, because in a very limited selection of FE native glass right now, this really is not only the least expensive, but also in many ways the best value, because if you're someone that is brand new to full frame, brand new to the alpha ecosystem, or I really should say E-mount ecosystem, and you don't have older lenses to use with this that are APS-C and are going to crop, this is going to be your best starting lens, not only in that it's a kit lens, but also just to really see how much you prefer getting that extra quality and whether or not you really would justify spending another $700, $800, or $1,000 to get another lens, or step up to the kit Zeiss lens. So to me, it's a great lens in several different ways, beyond just its form factor and performance, but also anyone coming from the NEX lineup of cameras who's making this, I would say, leap to full frame, because Sony has kind of forced you there, because the NEX7 successor, who knows if it's actually coming, even though I would like to think Sony's doing something. And as good as the A6000 looks, the fact is a lot of you have jumped ship and gone to full frame because the price point wasn't really out of reach from what you spent on your original NEX7 kit. So that's where I would say, if you're coming from an NEX7 kit and you didn't run out and buy a lot of the Zeiss glass there, you're going to be perfectly fine with this. In the same vein, if you did, you may still be perfectly fine with this. Of course, it's not going to deliver T-star coating contrast, and the color performance and sharpness that you get with a Carl Zeiss even zoom kit, but it's still going to give you great performance to match the sensor that's in the A7. In fact, many would argue it's been matched precisely to the A7, and that's why it was never paired with the A7R, because it simply can't perform to a high enough spec in order to accommodate the 36 megapixel sensor, unlike the 24 megapixel sensor here. So I believe it really is just a matter of how invested you want to get in the FE lens lineup. I think that if you're playing it safe because things are early and in their infancy, this is the perfect option. If you're all in, then clearly there are better options, prime and zoom otherwise. That's what the Carl Zeiss brand is all about, and that's why Sony has it. But for just about every other consumer, hobbyist, enthusiast, and even some pros who are going to be using predominantly legacy glass, this is probably the only FE lens that's going to make it into their bag. So in my opinion, it really is a solid performer. I prefer personally the Zeiss lens, but this isn't a comparison. This is all about the merit of the SEL2870 on its own. And the fact remains that right now it is one of the most attractive FE lenses because of price, size, overall performance. Yes, it's not perfect, but neither is the $1,200 Zeiss. In good lighting, this is going to perform very close to what you're going to get from the Zeiss. But again, that'll depend on whether you're shooting with the 7 or the 7R in terms of resolving the full resolution, and you're getting into something where the comparison becomes a little bit polluted. But when it comes to native glass, value for that native glass right now for Sony's full-frame mirrorless options, you simply aren't going to beat this. The only option, in my opinion, which is a fixed lens and really can't be compared to it because of price point, is the 35mm. And again, as a prime lens, even at what is arguably a slow f2.8, but people forget it's because of the size, and not getting into that now. It's still, right now, this lens, really one of the most compelling out there for the general consumer. In fact, I think the majority of consumers out there are just going to be blown away by the results this lens will produce. And then eventually, when they do desire a step up, that's when the Zeiss brand or third-party lenses will finally make their way into your bag. So a lot to like about this lens, certainly more to like than dislike. And I hope I've made that abundantly clear, whether it comes to pricing, performance, size, weight, fit and finish, build quality. By the way, this is made in Thailand, just like the camera, just like the Zeiss lenses. So don't think that there's a difference there either. But there's no question, this is not the same lens as the Zeiss. Don't for a moment think that you're getting the same performance. What you can clearly make an argument for, which is what this video has predominantly been about, is that the price-performance ratio is distorted or, just clearly out of touch with reality, because at 500 here, you get fantastic performance. With the Zeiss, you get incredible performance, but is it worth over 2 times the price of this lens? For the majority of humans, absolutely not. And that's the moral of the story with today's video. So a lot to like here, as I've said over and over again. Highly can recommend the kit lens, despite how odd that sounds, coming especially from me, someone who is not a fan of kit lenses. Sony, as I've said over and over again, has made sure to do this one right, because they know that their flagship A7, really the success does revolve around a solid piece of kit glass to start off for just about any consumer, so that they'll actually grow into the system and want to stay with Sony. And they'll find new customers. So Sony understands that, and it comes through on execution all across the board, in my opinion. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.